A civilization so advanced it could track the silent dance of the heavens. They followed the wanderers, the planets, with such precision that they could forecast their movements generations ahead. They didn't just watch the stars, they listened to them. To the Babylonians, the sky was not chaos. It was a divine tablet, and every eclipse, every comet, every wandering star was a sentence in a story written by the gods themselves. This was not Atlantis. This was not a myth. This was Babylon. And their story begins not with a king, nor a conquest, but with clay. Before it was an empire, it was a place on the map. A location that would become the cradle of civilization itself. In the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, urban life began emerging in the 4th and early 3rd millennium BCE. But Babylon's story truly begins around 1894 BCE as a small city-state on the banks of the Euphrates. For centuries, it remained insignificant, overshadowed by older, more powerful neighbors. Then came Hammurabi, 1792 to 1750 BCE, the king who would etch Babylon's name into history. Through brilliant strategy, he unified southern Mesopotamia into a single empire. His famous law code, 282 regulations, established a revolutionary idea. Society should be governed by consistent written rules, not just royal whims. But empires fade. The Hittites sacked the city. Kassite invaders ruled for centuries. Yet Babylon endured, absorbing knowledge from all who passed through. Then, in 626 BCE, came a spectacular rebirth. The Neo-Babylonian Empire exploded onto the world stage. Under Nebuchadnezzar II, the city transformed into a metropolis of unimaginable splendor. The legendary Ishtar Gate, massive walls rising toward the heavens, and a great ziggurat that may have inspired the Tower of Babel. And today, the modern visitor finds Babylon near Iraq's town of Hilla, a vast archaeological site of reconstructed foundations and the ancient outlines of a city that once touched the stars. Now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it stands as both a physical ruin and an immortal idea, the Gate of the Gods, reduced to crumbling brick, yet forever alive in human memory. It was from this place of ultimate power that they looked upward, convinced that if they could decode the heavens, their glory would never end. That clay was their hard drive. In the dim light of oil lamps, scribes pressed styluses into wet mud, creating the sharp, angular script of cuneiform. Each tablet was a snapshot of the cosmos. The Venus tablet of Amisadica didn't just list observations. It revealed that Venus follows a roughly 8-year cycle of appearances and disappearances as the morning and evening star. This was the breakthrough. The heavens were not random. They followed predictable patterns. But their true genius emerged with the astronomical diaries. Imagine a scientific record spanning over 600 years. Through wars, plagues, and the rise and fall of dynasties, generations of priest astronomers maintained this extraordinary archive. They documented everything, not just planets and eclipses, but weather, market prices, and river levels. They were building a massive data set to find the hidden correlations between the cosmos and human life. Their crowning achievement was identifying the Saros cycle. By comparing eclipse records across centuries, they found that every 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours, the sun, earth, and moon returned to nearly the same alignment. This meant they could predict eclipses for generations to come. They had built the first predictive numerical model of celestial cycles, a time machine made of data and unwavering dedication. In Babylon, this knowledge was not abstract. It was the ultimate source of power. The celestial patterns were compiled into the Enuma, Anu, and Lil, a vast collection of thousands of omens. This was the operating manual for running an empire, a sacred text that connected celestial events to earthly consequences. The system was brutally pragmatic. If the moon is eclipsed on the 14th day, one omen read, the king will die and his son will take the throne. If Mars approaches Scorpio, warned another, an enemy army will invade. This wasn't mere superstition. It was a sophisticated system of risk assessment based on centuries of observed correlations. The king's entire existence was governed by this celestial bureaucracy. Before any major decision, launching a war, signing a treaty, even planting the year's crops, the astronomers were consulted. Their ziggurats were not just temples, they were control centers where heaven and earth met. The city of Babylon itself was designed as a physical mirror of the cosmic order. Its massive walls represented the primordial waters that surrounded the world. Its 8 gates were dedicated to major deities, many with astral associations. The Great Processional Way anchored the Akitu New Year festival, held each spring. They believed that by perfectly aligning their city with the heavens, they could tap into its eternal stability and power. Every system, no matter how perfect, contains the seeds of its own destruction. The flaw in Babylon's divine blueprint was human nature itself. In 556 BCE, the throne was seized by Nabonidus, an elderly scholar and antiquarian. He was a man obsessed with the past, more interested in excavating the foundations of ancient temples than governing his living empire. He committed an unthinkable heresy. He elevated the moon god Sin above Babylon's chief deity, Marduk. This wasn't just a theological preference. It was a direct attack on the political and cosmic order. The powerful priesthood of Marduk, the very astronomers who maintained the celestial models, saw this as a catastrophic rupture. Then came his most baffling decision. For 10 years, Nabonidus abandoned Babylon entirely, ruling from a remote desert oasis called Tema. He left his son Belshazzar in charge, but the damage was done. In his absence, the empire's administration grew corrupt, military readiness declined, and the priesthood splintered into warring factions. Cyrus the Great was building the Persian Empire not on celestial omens, but on military innovation, logistical brilliance, and psychological insight. His approach was empirical and ruthlessly practical. By 539 BCE, Cyrus's empire stretched from Asia Minor to the Indus Valley. Babylon was the final prize, a city of legendary wealth, protected by walls so thick that chariots could race on top of them and a river that flowed through its heart. The Babylonian generals consulted their astronomical charts and saw no omens of danger. Confident in their divine protection, the city began its annual Akitu festival. As the city feasted, Cyrus's army arrived. But instead of a direct assault, he executed a plan of stunning audacity. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, Persian engineers diverted the Euphrates River upstream, digging canals to lower the water level until the riverbed became shallow enough to wade through, under the cover of festival revelry. Persian soldiers slipped into the city through the unguarded river gates. The Nabonidus Chronicle, a contemporary Babylonian document, records the stunning outcome with stark simplicity. The army of Cyrus entered Babylon without battle. The world's most powerful city fell not because its walls were breached, but because its assumptions were. The astronomers had been watching the sky, but the enemy came through the water. Cyrus understood that to truly conquer an empire, you must conquer its story. Instead of destroying Babylon's culture, he performed one of history's most brilliant acts of narrative warfare. He issued the Cyrus Cylinder, a clay manifesto that claimed Marduk, Babylon's own chief god, had chosen him to liberate the people from the mad king Nabonidus. The text was a masterpiece of political spin. Marduk scanned all the countries, searching for a righteous ruler, it declared. He pronounced the name of Cyrus, declaring him to be the ruler of all the world. This was genius on multiple levels. By positioning himself as Marduk's chosen instrument, he legitimized his rule to the Babylonian population. By criticizing Nabonidus' heresy, he won over the angry priesthood. He presented himself not as a foreign conqueror, but as a divine restorer. The conquered people became his greatest advocates. The Jewish exiles, whom Cyrus freed from captivity, hailed him as a Messiah. The book of Isaiah names him centuries before his birth. He is my shepherd, and he shall fulfill all my purpose. Cyrus had hacked Babylon's own operating system. He used their language of divine legitimacy, their tools of prophetic authority, and turned them into weapons of control. He proved that the most powerful conquest is the one that makes the conquered grateful for their defeat. Babylon's political empire ended that night, but its intellectual legacy became immortal. Their astronomical data traveled to Greece, where Hipparchus and Ptolemy built their models on Babylonian observations. Their base 60 number system survives in our 60-minute hours and 360-degree circles. Their methods of prediction laid the foundation for modern science. Their clay tablets outlasted their empire because knowledge, once discovered, cannot be undiscovered. But their downfall echoes as an urgent warning in our age of algorithms and big data. We are the new Babylon. We've built our own celestial models, complex algorithms that track human behavior instead of planetary movements. Our ziggurats are server farms, our priests are data scientists, our omens are correlation coefficients. But like the Babylonians, we risk becoming prisoners of our own models. We trust our predictive algorithms while forgetting their inherent limitations. We see patterns in data while missing the human realities outside our datasets. The Babylonians could calculate the path of Venus generations into the future, but missed the enemy wading through their river. They mastered the cosmos, but failed to account for the one variable that would destroy them, their own blind spots. Today, the ruins of Babylon stand silent under the same stars they once mapped. The Great Processional Way is an archaeological site. The mighty Euphrates flows on, indifferent to the empires that rise and fall on its banks. But in this silence, there echoes a question more relevant than ever. What happens when we become too certain of our own systems? When do we trust our models more than our judgment? The Babylonians left us two legacies: the magnificent foundation of scientific astronomy and the tragic example of what happens when intelligence becomes arrogance. They searched for eternity in the stars and found it, not in their empire's longevity, but in the timelessness of their warning. The sky never fell on Babylon. It was the ground that gave way beneath them, the human ground of politics, psychology, and simple miscalculation. And as we build our own digital empires, their story asks us the most uncomfortable question of all. Are we watching our rivers,